Good morning. I am Professor Ikin Salvador Amores. I am the Director of the Museo Kordilyera and the overall Project Coordinator of the MK-CHED project on museum training. On behalf of our project team, we welcome you to this exciting event. This project is in collaboration with Commission on Higher Education and UP Baguio through the Museo Kordilyera. First, I would like to start with the rationale and the project aims of this museum training. First, it aims to provide training and technical assistance to higher educational institutions in planning, setup, or reinvigorating museums to be used as platforms for supplemental and/or alternative learning system and tourism. For instance, we have the Indigenous Peoples Education, or IPED, which now needs museums to have this kind of dialogue with indigenous cultures and the different communities. Second, it will incorporate materials from international partners and courses to show examples of alternative or virtual museum exhibits and to use blended modality, both online and face-to-face, for training. Our team also conducted a training needs assessment survey, or the TNA, for all the participants to help us design the learning modules for the participants. We learned that there are about 69.2% who already have existing museums in their communities or in their cities, and 15.2% are planning to set up their own museum, while the 15% are still in the conceptualization stage for their museums. Hence, we see that there is a dire need for this kind of museum training for HEIs and other local stakeholders. We also asked the participants if they have any background on museology. It turns out that 82% are unaware of museology, and this actually validates the need to provide trainings in the field of museology. Our preliminary data also shows that the needs of the museums are equally important, such as the management of museums, handling of artifacts, research and exhibition of artifacts, among others. As a university museum, we highlight the value of research before setting out an exhibition, as this would be the basis of the narrative of the story. In addition, the analysis of the project team based on this survey allowed us to design training and learning modules to meet the needs of our participants. In the museum management training for HEIs, we aim to have capacity building, internationalization, and impact. In the capacity building, we aim to deepen understanding of the educational role of museums in higher educational institutions, acquire advanced skills in museology, museum work, and transfer of skills in museology to higher educational institutions, and to enhance the capacity, appreciation, and support for institutions who employ museums for quality education and innovative pedagogy. In internationalization, we aim to develop partnerships with international and local museums to exchange and source out materials, particularly on alternative learning modules for museum exhibitions and activities. We aim to steer greater awareness and appreciation, as well as instill pride in one's cultural heritage and identity through museum exhibitions and services, and to contribute to conservation of regional and national culture and heritage, which are important anchors for sustainable growth in the country. And lastly, the impact. We aim to mainstream museum-based learning in higher educational institutions, academic, extension, and production programs. Increase capacity of staff to support training needs, collaboration with higher educational institutions, and at the end of the training, we hope to come up with a directory of HEIs all over the Philippines, or HEI museums all over the Philippines. Collaboration with international museums, advocates of IPED using museums as platform for higher learning. Since last year, we convened 15 panelists who are museum practitioners, conservators, and scholars in the field who have an extensive experience on museum work. The presentations will be shown on scheduled dates. Second, the online training comes in different stages. Level 1 will be on basic museology. Here we give an overview of museum work and how we can assist HEIs to jumpstart their museum work. Level 2 will be advanced museology, which will delve deeper into detailed work on museums. And this will take place in February 2021 in time for the Arts Month. Level 3 will be the Technical Assistance Program where selected HEI museums will be assisted by museum experts, on-site visits, and brainstorming on how to improve the museum. The final output will be a curated museum, which will be an application of the knowledge learned from Level 1 and 2. The project will also provide museum supplies that can be useful for this endeavor. Hopefully, Level 3 will take place in the summer months when travel restrictions will be lifted, and if not, we will do everything online. In each of these levels, activities and exercises will be sent to the participants for completion, which they can work on with the respective museum team. All this will be assessed by our museum experts. Third, HEIs and individuals who successfully completed Level 1 and Level 2 trainings will be issued a certificate of completion and goes to the second round of the museum training, which will also be training of trainers that will be highly advanced. Hopefully, lessons learned from the trainings will cascade to their respective units. Once you have completed Level 1 training, or if you have attended each of the webinars, a certificate of attendance will be issued by registering to our link after the webinars. For the training, each of the HEI participant will receive a training kit, a basic museum handbook, a learning toolkit like a module on museums. This will be 2 volumes based on this training, and it will be sent to all of you. And lastly, we thank the participants from all over Philippines, from the Cordillera Administrative Region, the National Capital Region, Ilocos Region, Cagayan Valley, Central Luzon, Calabarzon, Mimaropa, Bicol, Western Visayas, Central Visayas, Eastern Visayas, Zamboanga Region, Northern Mindanao, Davao, Socsargen, Caraga, and the Bangsamoro Region. If you have other concerns and queries, please feel free to email us, send us a note on our FB page, or call us. On behalf of our chairperson from the Commission on Higher Education, Dr. Popoy de Vera, our Chancellor, Raimundo Revillos, and our project team, along with Dean Toto Colongon of the College of Social Sciences, our museum staff, our IT staff, we welcome you to the online museum trainings for HEIs. Good Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the final day of our webinar. We've been here for the past 2 months, and we are now down to the last webinar. This will be delivered by Ms. Mariles Gustilo. She's the Senior Director of Arts and Culture at the Ayala Foundation. She's concurrently Senior Director of the Ayala Museum, which includes both the museum and the Filipinas Heritage Library. Ayala Museum is a private museum. Ayala Museum is a private art and history museum. It exists under the auspices of the Ayala Foundation, which is the social development art of Ayala Corporation, which is the Philippines' oldest business house at 184 years old, with interest in real estate, banking, telecommunications, water, power, industrial technologies, infrastructure, healthcare, and education. Miss Mariles joined the Ayala Museum in 2012, and it has undergone renewed dynamism through astute programming to engage the audiences. In 2017, under her leadership, Ayala Museum was the first Philippine museum to participate in the prestigious Venice Biennial with the exhibition entitled Fernando Zobel Contrapuntos. In 2015, she led the Ayala Museum in its collaboration with Asia Society Museum in New York to mount the successful exhibition Philippine Gold, Treasures of Forgotten Kingdoms. So, if you've been to Ayala Museum, they have wonderful exhibits there as well. So, I'm not sure if it's open, so let's find that out from Miss Mariles, who will talk about museums in transition or museum programming in transition. The context of this talk is actually on the effect of the impact of the pandemic to the museums. No? So, hello, Miss Mariles, live from Makati.
Hi, Ekin. Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mariles. So we are playing your slides in a few moments, and then we will have. I'll also give a talk about the case study at Museo Kordilyera. Then we'll have the Q&A
All right.
soon after.
All right.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am Mariles Gustilo, and I am Senior Director of Ayala Museum. First, I would like to thank UP Baguio, CHED, and most especially Dr. Ekin Amores for inviting me to speak today about museums in transition. This is a topic close to my heart because as we speak, Ayala Museum is under renovation, and we are in fact a museum in transition. First, a bit of background about Ayala Museum. Ayala Museum is a private museum built in the 1970s based on the belief that arts and culture advocacy is a powerful form of civic action. The mandate was to instill pride and empower Filipinos through a deeper understanding of our history, culture, and traditions. Over the years, this mandate has remained the same, except implemented differently to respond to the times. An art and history museum, we exist under the auspices of Ayala Foundation, the social development arm of Ayala Corporation. We are located in the central business district of Makati City, next to a mall with over 500,000 people passing by daily. Among our competitors for their valuable attention are shops, cinemas, and restaurants, and might I add, their mobile phones. Our collections include Philippine pre-colonial gold from the 10th to the 13th century, Asian trade ceramics from the 9th to the 16th century of the Roberto T. Villanueva Foundation, and a unique showcase of indigenous Philippine textiles donated by Mercedes Sobel. We are also known for the Philippine Diorama Experience, 60 handcrafted dioramas visually narrating the significant milestones of Philippine history. Our fine arts collections are focused on the works of artists Juan Luna, Fernando Amorsolo, and Fernando Sobel. At the core of our modern and contemporary art collections are the winning entries of the Shell Art Awards from 1951 to the present through a generous donation of Filipinas Shell. We also manage the art collection of the Bank of the Philippine Islands. In 2013, the Ayala Museum's sixth floor became the home of the Filipinas Heritage Library, making its extensive collection of Filipiniana materials and other references on Philippine arts, history, and culture a fine complement to the museum collections. Over the past few years, cognizant of the challenge to be relevant to an already overstimulated audience, we embarked on dynamic programming that included an average of 14 exhibitions per year. Workshops and lectures, concerts and performances, and museum-branded events like Inspire Every Day, Midnight Museum, and International Museum Day. Ayala Museum also did its share to promote Philippine culture abroad. In 2015, we co-organized the exhibition Philippine Treasures of Forgotten Kingdoms with Asia Society Museum in New York, featuring select objects from our pre-colonial gold collection and from that of Bangko Sentral. In 2017, Ayala Museum became the first Philippine museum to participate in the Venice Biennale as a collateral event with the exhibition Fernando Sobel Contrapuntos. in June 2019, we closed the museum for renovation as part of a 5-year plan to upgrade the facility and enhance its programming with the use of technology to reach a broader audience on-site, off-site, and online. With the decision to close for renovation, we had to face the challenge of how to make sure that people didn't forget about us. We decided the key was strong presence online and off-site. The transition to online was painless because we had already gone digital. For one, we were in the midst of digitizing our collections. We had an app. We used virtual reality to contemporize the dioramas. We also had content, films and videos produced to complement exhibitions, document lectures and events, or even focus on objects in our collections that were points of fascination. We were also very active on social media. The transition to offsite was also painless because of a long history on the part of our curatorial to bring exhibitions outside Metro Manila to schools, universities, and colleges. But what made a big difference was a major tie-up with Ayala Malls, which allowed us to bring our exhibitions to large masses of people at one time. By the end of 2019, the online offsite experiment turned out to be very rewarding. Meanwhile, our renovation schedule was tracking well, slightly behind, but still manageable. That is, until 2020 and COVID-19. By February, our schedules were way off track. Equipment that were ordered from China to upgrade our facility were stuck in their ports, and we didn't know when they would ever get here. By March, ECQ was declared and the renovation suspended. What could we do, we asked ourselves, to be relevant at this time? What could we contribute in our own humble way to help deal with such a destabilizing occurrence? In response, we embarked on yet another transition. Once again, digging deep into our repository of existing content, we developed a full range of online materials to help provide levity and encourage creativity and learning during the lockdown. Here are some of them. It was a young team at the museum who conceptualized and produced these materials, but they had to clear everything with curatorial and collections management. Admittedly, a new way of working, but as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. Ayala Museum's organizational structure is like that of any museum, organized into departments with defined roles: curatorial, research and publications, collections management, conservation, tours and education, audience development and marketing, and operations. With COVID-19 and the challenge to bring the museum experience online, we found these silos collapse to better respond to audience needs and the organization becoming more agile, pursuing what tech engineers refer to as minimum viable product ideas. Last June, with the lifting of ECQ, Ayala Museum resumed renovation. And although we will be unable to meet our original timeline to open within 2020, we are hopeful that it will be completed and, God willing, we will be able to reopen sometime in 2021. As we plan for 2021 and consider the impact of COVID 19 on our operations, it is clear to us that the museum must be a safe zone, defined by social distancing and transmission of disease. We also have to accept the negative impact of reduced capacity and other restrictions. On the other hand, we also have to consider the viability of the online audience. It's been said that all it takes is to do the same thing over and over again for 30 days for it to be a habit. The world has been online for 6 months, and I think it is safe to assume that it will be a way of life for many. For me, these two factors combined define the new normal we all have to face. In response to the new normal, we at Ayala Museum have embarked on yet another transition. Last August 9, we launched Ayala Museum Virtual, marking our commitment to bring Philippine art and culture online and a new phase in our virtual programming. If in the past we focused on repurposing existing content, we now have to develop totally new content, specifically designed for the digital platform. This will demand innovation and creativity from our staff and an enhanced commitment to working with digital technologies. As we speak, we are exploring a broad range of concepts, from virtual exhibitions to virtual events to virtual field trips, and many more. And the journey continues because transformation is not a major reset, it happens in incremental steps. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mariles, for that wonderful presentation. So we will have the question and answer after this presentation. So we will also look at the case of the Museo Kordilyera, who just recently opened its doors to the public. So I'll be presenting a few slides just to give an idea what's happening at the Museo Kordilyera now. Okay, so I'll just briefly discuss the case study at Museo Kordilyera from traditional to digital programming. So, just a brief background about Museo Cordillera. I'm sure you already know what the museum is all about. So I'll just present it briefly here. So, Museo Cordillera is the University Museum of UP Baguio, which was established in 2015 to complement pedagogy. It is also the platform for faculty researches and mounts a changing thematic exhibition every year with a visible storage for a permanent exhibition. So our team has a curatorial team, which is composed of the curator, graphic designer, a researcher, a consultant, the director, two museum staff, a security and utility staff. And we already had three exhibitions installed. The first one is on traditional tattoos with Sagada photographs and the work of Jules Derat exhibited in our museum. Then we had the Feast of Merit exhibition, and then currently we have the hand-woven tales, warped and weft of Cordillera textile. So these are the exhibitions that we had for the previous years of the Museo Cordillera. So we opened the textile exhibition last November 15, 2019. So the exhibition was based on the 3-year research project of the Corditex. So the research team is interdisciplinary, coming from different disciplines such as anthropology, physics, math, chemistry, art history, ethnomathematics, ethnobotany, and ergonomics, no, at the College of Human Kinetics. And then we have an extensive exhibition on Cordillera textiles, such as the production of weaving, the relevance of textiles in ritual and social life, as well as the contemporary uses of the textiles. So these are some of the photos that we took during our launching of the exhibition last November 15, 2019. So this is a mixture of vintage and contemporary textiles, as well as archival photographs, weaving implements, and interactive media. Pre-COVID-19, we had a very good turnout of visitors coming to the museum from all ages, no, from different provinces and cities. We also had group tours from different schools and various organizations. And we had series of exhibition collaterals from January to August 2020, such as the weaving workshop, which was held last February 2020. This is in cooperation with the Corditex, the Agabel Tayo. So we had visitors from all walks of life, and the workshops are for free. No? So we had master weavers, we had students, we had faculty, and of course the community came to participate in the workshop. We also had a workshop with Miss Patis Tesoro last March 6, 2020, called Kulay at Kapas, where she gave a workshop for weavers, potential designers, and other artisans at the Museo Cordillera. So we currently have the museum training with the university museums in cooperation with SHED for May 2020. That was supposed to be scheduled in May 2020, but this was interrupted due to the pandemic. And then, of course, there is a course now in at the Department of Social Anthropology at the College of Social Sciences for teaching museology, which should be August 2020 to 2021. So this is still ongoing, but these are done everything online. So the museum was very busy until the pandemic came. The Museo Cordillera board and the university decided to close the museum last March 22, 2020. So this suspended all classes at all levels and other crowd drawing activities. And in March 15, 2020, there was a declaration of ECQ and then eventually to the lockdown of Baguio City due to the COVID-19. So our immediate concern was the health and safety of our museum personnel as well as the museum collections. So we have to stop the operation and we pulled down the current exhibition due to the volatile situation, the threat of molds, and of course the heavy rains in Baguio City. So we there's a arrangement for the museum personnel not to report physically to the museum, and we pulled down the entire exhibition for last March. So the museum was empty, everything was folded up, and the museum was closed. So at the museum, we had also conservation challenges, and we also have to address to protect and conserve our collections. No, so we had the question on how do we preserve the textiles on display since everything is very organic, and of course the artifacts in the storage, and how do we minimize the damage on textiles. No, brought about by humid environment and climate control, the rains, the molds, the insects, the storage and care. And we conducted preventive care in the museum. Right now, from July, we had this following questions. No, how can the university museums remain relevant in the time of COVID? No, so we thought that museums have to evolve using the digital realm as a new platform, and we have to execute new ways in communicating scientific knowledge to the public, such as we did. Transfer or digitize our collection, and we brought that to the social media. No, so we have this virtual access to the collection or the MK online, and then we had a restaging of the exhibition last October, no, in time for the Baguio Festival in Baguio City. And then we had a virtual exhibition or virtual museum. We produced a short video tour of the Museo Kordilyera's current exhibition. And then we are now exploring how to put the virtual museum online through a museum website. So this is still ongoing. And then we also intend to have this virtual curation laboratory. This is a 3D modeling of the artifacts that you can see in the museum based on the Corditex research. So in Corditex, we also have this 3D rendering of our textiles, how to study the structure. And we thought that we can also apply this with the artifacts inside the museum. So the curation is done virtually in understanding the artifacts. And then we had the series of webinars. We started in October and November with 15 panelists to talk about different aspects of museum management. So these are done online. And we are also teaching museology using the virtual platforms, no, and other alternative ways such as the UPVLE, that's the virtual learning environment of UP Baguio. We also maximize the use of Zoom for our webinars, as well as YouTube for the pre-recorded and recorded lectures, no, on museology. So this is what we are doing in the museum. And despite all these challenges, the museum should extend experience beyond the exhibitions using on-site programs and digital resources. We had the talk yesterday with Evert. So she's also helping us on how to digitize and to have this, to design digital technology exhibitions for our museum. So COVID-19 is also a kickstarter to plan for alternative ways of reaching the public and the communities that the museum serves. No? So we are trying to bridge the real and the virtual through our exhibitions. So as custodians of culture, there is a need for capacity building. So we have this ongoing training with the staff to do the technical aspect. And then of course, what is more important is the mindset and reflexivity to carry out museum's response to the pandemic. I think this is most important for today in the current situation. And then the museum should also evolve into this new museological order and adjust to the current situation. So I concur with Ms. Marile's point that we have to go digital, no, in trying to reach our audience. And all this to remain relevant as communicators of knowledge and remit its important role in the society. So in the end, despite all of this pandemic and all this situation, the museum should emerge as a stronger and more resilient in this critical time. So these are photos of our museum before pandemic came. So the objective still is to reach our public and then continue educating them about our culture and history. For the other activities of Museo Kordilyera, we also thought of this idea on Mandeco Quito. This is the artisanal market where the Museo Cordillera and UP Baguio are involved. No? We invited artisans to feature their crafts, weaving, textiles, wood carving, and others. No? Because it was a very difficult time, and as part of the museum's extension program, we also have to help the community around us. So we had this artisanal market, which is still ongoing until November 30. So we featured artisans in this market, no, from coming from Abra, Bontoc, Benguet, Baguio, Bicol, and other places of interest, no, and other artisans that were featured in the artisanal fair. And also textiles from Sagada were able to participate. And then we also reopened the Museo Cordillera last November 6, 2020. So our MK board decided to open the museum to the public, but with limited entries. No, so we only allowed 10 people at a time in the morning and 10 in the afternoon, based on by appointment only. So just as to observe the proper health and safety protocols inside the museum. And in coordination with the Museo Cordillera Board, we have to come up with health and safety protocols with the Office of Safety and Health at the university. And these are largely observed in the museum, as well as the premises, no, around the museum. So we have this installed, all this acrylic glass, and then of course these signages to for the visitors to observe when they enter the museum. And then another activity is the museum management training, which started in October and then in November. So this is still ongoing, the last day today. So we decided to conduct an online webinar. The original plan was to invite all of these 200 participants and panelists to come to Baguio to conduct the workshop for 1 week, but eventually this was interrupted because of the pandemic. So everything was done online. So I think some of the participants are appreciative of this effort, no, to reach out to the communities out there who are, building or revitalizing their museums. And also inside the museum, we also welcome artisans or weavers to use the museum as a workshop. So as part of the Ibagay Festival, so some of our local weavers who are here from Bontoc, from Ifugao, from Benguet came, no, to use our looms to create their textiles, no, as part of the Ipagyo Festival. So we are hosting a lot of weavers also to come to the museum to weave and look at the exhibition as well. No? So and then part of this is the innovation, how they can infuse traditional with contemporary designs in their work. So we just had this 2 weeks ago with the weavers. And then as part of our educational programming, we also launched the 5 storybooks on weaving and a learning toolkit, which is supposedly scheduled by next year, but we had it in advance because we found the time relevant, no, with the exhibition, with the festival, and the programming, no, for the museum. So these are some photos from the launch last November 20. And I think this is well attended. We also had the live programming via YouTube to reach out with our audience. I think that's about it. For the activities and the programming of the Museo Kordilyera in transition. So we will now have the Q&A with Ms. Mariles.
Hello, I'm back.
Okay. Hi, Mariles. So would you like to tell us the current situation now at Ayala Museum before we go on to our
Yes,
questions?
we're still under renovation, but it's getting there, 70%. It's slowly, because I think the reality is, how do you deploy laborers and workers so that they don't infect each other? So thank God that you have project managers who do this time and motions. It's really quite involved, and you don't want people to get sick. So meanwhile, we're preparing for our reopening, which is one whole requirement and effort as well, while we continue to be present online. And I think, you mentioned it, I think digital will be a way of life for museums. No, I think what I have found is, it has really helped me reach people that I did not reach before. And I think that that's important. And the idea of the educational value of our objects, of our collections have been magnified, because I think the important thing, at least for us in at Ayala, is really how do you engage, and that's why I like listening to your presentation, Ikin, because that's part of it. Is how do you engage? How do you get um, people to be equally fascinated with the stuff you're working with, because obviously there's something to it, and a lot of it is in how you deliver the message, how do you deliver the fascinating aspect about it. And so I think digital will play a role there, as well as what we have found, and I'm sure you've found and many other museums have found. Digitizing your collection is a kind of storage. It's the
Yeah.
flip side of physical storage, because it allows you to keep track of so it's not hindi siya bukod. Dapat
Mm-mm.
integral siya sa operation, and I think that's a big learning for all of us. It's especially as your collections increase, as you loan, you have to keep track. You were talking about loaning, and that's an entire area of expertise, keeping track. And what I think I like about this whole modules and workshops that you've been doing, you're encouraging even loaning across, even within the Philippines, because there's just so much going on.
Yeah.
And so I think that's basically it. For us at the museum at the moment, we're busy with renovation, and we're busy with Ayala Museum virtual, and the Filipinas Heritage Library also going very much digital with promoting their collections.
Thank you, Mariles. So we have some questions here from our Q&A chat box. So question for you. This pandemic has made clear our priorities, essential or non-essential. Where do museums stand in this time of crisis?
I believe our role is essential in the area of education. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly
Yeah.
clear.
I think it's in the area of education that we complement what the depth ed syllabus is. What we've done, for example, is our collections and our videos we have categorized by grade so that teachers can use them to supplement the teaching, especially because of this online and distance learning. Um, we feel that the teachers need um, uh, additional support, especially parents who have decided they will do the homeschooling, and so these are things that we're very cognizant about. And we're also lucky because Ayala Foundation is not just art and culture. We have a whole section on social development and education. So we have teachers. So we collaborate with each other like the way you do in the university across departments, so that you can get some expertise. But I really believe education becomes a big thing, a big role that both museums and libraries have to fulfill in the next few years, um, especially in the context of this distance learning. So the fact that we're able to digitize our collections, tell our stories, not just about the exhibition, but individual objects clearly tell stories of their own. I feel that's very important, and will help a child or even a graduate school student wrap their heads around the depth and richness of the collections that we keep in the museum. I mean, they're not just there for decoration, they're supposed to be teaching tools as well. I think that's the
Yeah.
role. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I also concur with the role of education, the role of the museum in education, because at the moment we are recalibrating our programs to meet the demands of, let's say, the dep ed. A lot of schools also have been asking for materials from Museo Kordilyera, like photographs of Bulol and descriptions of the rituals in the Cordillera. So we received some of those queries from teachers, and also we make all of these collections online so they can access the photographs.
Yeah,
And we also sent some information about them and other learning resources such as e-copies, books. So we have to send them.
yeah,
And the museum shop have been very busy sending books to a lot of schools interested with our children's books and other publications on the Cordillera. So I think the role of the museum is even stronger in this time of
yes,
pandemic,
yeah,
because we bring this back to their home. I mean, closer to their homes, even
yeah.
our exhibitions and all.
And I
Yeah.
think
I
what's also advantageous about uh, being online is you can look at things up close. You can look at
yeah.
individual objects closely. But the other day, because I also keep track of um, what's going on in the world outside of museums, and this whole thing of the hybrid between digital and on-site. There's a whole area called phygital, which is the physical and the digital, and how you combine them in order to engage. I only sat through 30 minutes of that lecture, but I think that's something that I recommend everybody keep track of, because it also, I think, impacts the way curatorial will think of presenting the objects or the collection, how they write. I think these are the things that we're all in the process of learning. How do you
Mhm.
write text so that it sets the right atmosphere to learn. So we're all doing it as we move along. So what I do is I
Yeah.
look outside. I see how other people are trying to engage in other industries.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. The For the HEIs who are starting their museums, or they have an existing museum, like what Marila said, you can actually explore outside of the Philippines. There's a lot of resources and a lot of webinars ongoing now on the digital uh, arrangement of museums now, no? Okay, so there's a question here from Randy Nobleza.
Mm-mm,
So he's from Marinduque.
mm-mm,
The question is, I understand that Ayala Museum is a private museum and Museo Cordillera is a public museum. Which is university or school based? What
mm-mm.
are your thoughts about community based museums that do not enjoy the same patronage of a private donor or state funds.
Yeah, yeah.
So
You
this
want me?
is a community
Yeah,
museum
yeah.
that do not enjoy the same patronage of a private donor or
Yeah,
state
yeah.
funds.
It's tough, but it's, I think the first place is, since it is a community museum, and I guess my question is, what is the museum going to be about? I mean, from the community museums that we have worked with, for example, if the museum is about the history of the community, I think one way is to engage your community to participate, kasi the value of the museum then becomes personal. It talks
Mhm.
about your history as of your town. It will feature the relatives of the community. So it's, and I guess that's the first thing. No, I think the idea is to do it, and to try and put it in place, because if it's there and people see it, then they can respond. And then I don't think you expect that to kick off overnight, but you have to sell the idea of what the museum is about and its meaning to your community. It can be very, very modest in the beginning, but I think you have to start with the concept of your museum and what it's trying to impart to the community that it serves. I know it's a very conceptual thing, but in real terms, it is, you gather a few things from your community and put it in a place where everybody else in the community can access it and appreciate it. Especially what I notice from community museums, it's usually about the history of the town, and who will not be interested in that? No, so I think the thinking should always be your audience, whether we're talking about university museums or private corporate museums like Ayala Museum. Your customer or your visitor should be front and center, because who are you trying to fascinate but them? So I think that's probably my, and of course eventually hopefully you can tap one of your wealthier wealthier members of your community to support, but it really all starts with the idea and the visitor, I think.
Yeah. Thank you, Mariles. We've seen in our fieldwork in the Cordillera, we've seen community museums in villages,
Yeah.
in different places. So we conducted research on that.
Mm,
And it's a very modest, it's just one, it is one classroom museum,
yeah.
but the best thing there, it's community led. So you have this school teacher who would require students to bring relevant artifacts from their homes, and it is brought there. So this is how you start or you build your museums, by actually starting with small things or small artifacts. Then second, you have the stories. What are the stories behind the objects that they bring to the school, no? And we've seen the efforts of school teachers, no, locally, in building their own community museums. Perhaps like we are very passionate about this training seminar. We in fact invited them to come over to Baguio to
Mm,
undergo training. So I think yeah, so building the community museum starts from small things, no, like what you said, it's not overnight. And
mm,
of course, it should be part of the curriculum. The object should be part of a laboratory for teaching. For instance, if you teach culture and history, you have to go to that lab or a museum to allow the students to touch the objects.
mm,
No, and
mm,
then we're also teaching them how to do the catalog in some community museum, because really they needed training on handling, cataloging, most especially in conceptualizing stories that they want to impart to their public, no, or the community or the audience. So most of the people that we saw there are elders who are storytellers at the same time, staying in the community museums.
and I
Okay,
think
so that's the difference. I talk too much.
I think, Ikin, the other
Yes.
thing also, like we had the opportunity to work with a small town in Palawan called Sibaltan, and they had a little museum, just little pieces from the community. And what we sent our curatorial team there to teach them, like what you said, catalog, keep track of what they have, and then display. And now it's become a little tourist destination
Wow.
because
Yeah.
it tells of the history of the town, which is connected to where Palawan, the rest of the mga beach resorts, and foreigners are always interested to know that. So in our own way, you help them know how to present, and I think there's also something advantageous about, say, a university working with a small museum like that, or a museum like Ayala that has little outreach programs like that, because it also helps in our own expansion of what's out there. No?
Mhm.
So I think those are the things that's interesting for community museums.
Yeah. If we recall in our previous webinars on the significance of putting value to the artifacts, so if these were like utilitarian objects that were just thrown away, then suddenly a child picks it up and brings it to the school, then you put a value in it, you put a story. So the teachers were like, oh, may storya pala yan. Oh. So that adds to the story, and then of course you actually build a small museum for that school. Okay, from a question from Randy Nobleza. In addition to the transition to the digital and virtual, there is also the same concern about storage. How do you see the limits, no? And in what ways to overcome them? Where will we store the accumulated collections physically and in the cloud, for example? What is
Yeah.
your policy on weeding and the accession of museum objects? So there's a lot of
Big question.
questions within this big question. So maybe we can start with uh, the storage. No, how do you see the limits, and in what ways we can overcome this
Yeah. I
from
think
digital?
I think one of it is obviously, you have to keep track. You have to have also, a framework of what you collect. Yet, I mean, you can't collect everything. As a museum, you have to have guidelines of what you collect, because your what first it has to go with the overall vision for your museum, and therefore you cannot naman accept everything, no? Because, like, for example, for larger museums, we are beneficiaries of, say, donations, right? So people, collectors have things, and they think their children won't want it anymore, so they will approach a major museum if they you want it. But there are things that you need to be very clear about what you will collect, and therefore commit to care for, because isn't that what we're all about? No, museums are there to care for these objects. And so in our particular case, we have been very fortunate in the last few years that as our collections have grown, we were able to look for external storage space, because what happens is our museum is large, but not super large that we can keep our collections in one place. And it's also a practice of museums abroad, the bigger ones, that your collections is somewhere else. And it has to be, of course, guided by, um, uh, collections guidelines,
Right.
protocols,
Yeah.
keeping it at a certain temperature, checking and all that, which is a lifetime commitment. So I think, one, you have to have very clear guidelines about what you will collect, and how it fits into the bigger picture of the museum. No, I think that's the first one when it comes to storage, and of course you have to have a conservation group. I mean, I don't even have really tons of people, but I have people who work with us who have been taking care of our collections for years. And then as they get older, then we train. We try to train in house, and so that the skill is passed on. But I think eventually, and I'm glad there is say something, this whole thing that you're doing for museology will then deepen the bench from where museums like myself and others can draw expertise, because it's really important if we are as a country going to commit to museums as educational channels. our collections have to be not have to be taken care of. Like your textiles.
Mm.
Naku, ang selan, di ba? You have to really know how to take care of
Yes.
style. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's the most important thing is you have to have a clear vision of what you are collecting to make your vision real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the second question. So if you have already accumulated collections in place physically,
Yeah.
how do you store them, whether that's digital or other forms?
Yeah.
That's the second question of the
If
question.
we already have the pieces, then we have physical storage. But what we've done in the past few years is also digitize the data so that we
Mm-mm.
can the two are work off each other. It's much clearer. Especially now, I have found the benefit is it's easier for us to keep track of what we have. Um, before if it was just handwritten, it's harder to update. So and then if we want to loan or people want to loan our objects, it's easier to keep track of where it is.
Mm.
So I think it has sort of made the whole process far more efficient. If, for example, Museo Kordilyera said, "Realize, can we loan one object in your ceramics collection?" Then I'll know, I can keep track of it. And I think that, so it's two sides. You have your physical storage, which you have to ensure is designed to take care of the objects that you have. And then there's the digital, what I call digital storage, which is part of cataloging, obviously, that you know exactly. And then when you're not there anymore, because the institution lives on as the people who run it move on to other things, the data is always available for whoever has to manage the museum, I think.
Uh, for the case of the Museo Kordilyera, we have already digitized some of our collections. We have everything in the database. So each time, if you look for some artifacts that you could use for the exhibition, it would be easy. And in terms of the management of the data, we also have a software that is being currently acquired, no, with barcode system, parang siyang library with the barcode, but this time are artifacts, which could be a good management system for the collections that we have. Okay, so that's one way. And then the other one is also the physical storage. So every day we clean the visible storage as well as the exhibition halls, no? And then we treat them with some conservation chemicals or whatever, just to keep it clean and all. And then, okay, the third question. What is your policy on weeding and deaccession of museum objects?
Mm. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I
I
guess I
think
don't
that
know. You
was
want to answer?
discussed in the.
Yes.
Okay, I think this was discussed in the lecture by Peter Natividad on how you can deaccession museum objects.
Mm-mm.
Okay, shall we proceed to the comment from Maria Cecilia Medina? This is a comment. What has helped Ayala Museum and Cordillera Museum in research about artifacts or items that have been collected or donated in the past, perhaps their origin
Mm-hmm.
and background unknown, so you can tell the story of the object? Yes, that's precisely what we do. So we research deeply on the origin, the provenance, and the use of that artifact before we can actually tell the story of the object.
Yeah.
Okay, question. What factors influence you in deciding what artifacts or museum exhibition uh, to present or post online?
Mm-hmm.
What factors influence you in deciding what artifacts or museum exhibition to present or post online?
Um,
Because there are, yeah.
I think in one of the things that we do look into is, and this is already very marketing oriented or media usage oriented. If you will notice, the online platforms behave differently. Like in Facebook, generally you'll see a lot of announcements there. On Twitter, you'll see more people conversing with each other. So I think it requires one an appreciation for the digital platforms that you will use to promote. Uh, Aside from the fact that you have your website, right? So many of these things sit in your website, but what sometimes you'll put it on FB or you'll put it on Instagram, video. So I think a lot that takes into consideration. That's why I find what I find interesting about digital is it allows uh, us to tell stories about objects more readily because people are looking at it up close on their phone. You can talk a little bit more about it. Um, and then, of course, we do have programming. We are my audience development staff. We generally have a 6 months programming schedule that is designed to promote specific aspects and that's in collaboration with our curatorial team. So we try to be advanced for this digital, which is really been taking place this year. For actual exhibitions, it takes us about 2 years to prepare, but I think for digital, especially in the past few months, wherein we, like you said, you restage things or you repurpose information, it's a little easier. But generally, there is really a program to promote certain aspects of the collection. Sometimes it's topical, sometimes it's to tie up with a national holiday, or there are all of these things. It's like planning programming a network with content. What kind of shows will you show? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question there for the case of Ayala Museum. How much, maybe how much percentage do you show to the public online? Is that the entire exhibition, or is it a part of it, or how many percentage are usually done
Right.
online?
Not usually. What we've done is, for example, in the earlier part of the COVID, we would show full exhibitions of exhibitions that happened in the past, right? We're making that available because what we've and now I've noticed is, and it's a strategy that I think we should all use, is when you have an exhibition on site and you video that, when you pull down the exhibition, I think you did it also, Egan, when you pull down the exhibition, you can show it online and get a whole new audience. So I think that's a very interesting, whereas before, once you pull down the exhibition, nobody will see it anymore. And you have the catalog, yes, but it's different when you can see it. Um, Now we're doing virtual exhibitions, exhibitions designed for the online space using digital platforms. It's very hard. Huh? My curators are, my more seasoned curators are having fun with it because it's a new place to do an exhibition. And yet it's the younger staff that are masigasig to understand the program. So in that sense, it's allowing you to really mount a full exhibition. We just mounted recently an exhibition on Arturo Luz, which was mounted 2 years ago, but we didn't film it. So we restaged it online. And just watching the team know how to manage that new program was, I thought, very interesting. And that's why you really need a combination of very knowledgeable young people who are not afraid of the digital space, but who are very eager to learn from your more senior staff, so that it is, of course, scholarly, has credibility, and all of these things. So that's why when I mentioned in my presentation, the silos collapse because digital happens. And everybody's concentrating on how to tell the story best. So yeah, it can be quite exciting.
Yeah. For the case of Museo Cordillera, we already developed this way of digital writing, and then, of course, the digital curation. We have already explored that as well.
Mm,
But you don't show everything. Maybe the highlights of the exhibition, a teaser of the exhibition, uh, those relevant information, because we still would like our
one.
audience not to visit physically the Cordillera. And what's good with the digital platform is that there is a synergy of the use of website, social media, what else? So you have to design everything,
Yeah,
design and curate digitally at this time.
yeah,
And you can also, in the digital platform, you can also archive your catalog,
yeah,
everything. Your activities are already in there in just one click. You can see
yeah,
everything
yeah,
in the digital platform. So the Museo Cordillera is still developing a 3D virtual museum. So it's still in the works.
yeah.
It's a different way of curating physically with the digital format. It's quite challenging but very exciting. So
Exciting, di
hopefully,
ba?
we come to that point when we can show it to the public. The difficult, yeah, but exciting siya.
Exciting. I think it's challenge.
Okay, there's a question from.
Yeah, from. Sorry.
Please go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think I was just gonna say it's challenging for everyone, which makes our job fun. I think that's the whole. Although it's a little, it was very destabilizing. I find that as a group of people, you're learning so much. So yes, there
Yeah.
was a question, Ikin, you were going to say.
Okay, so there's a question from Joseph Kua.
Mhm.
So Joseph is a docent at the new Ayala Museum Center, which opened. Wait. Okay, so the question is from Joseph Kua. He was one of the first docents of the new Ayala Museum Center, and that opened to the virtual efforts,
Mm-mm.
even pre-COVID, of the Ayala Museum, and now at the Museo Cordillera has been very
Mm.
inspiring. At the Met Manila, as a docent, they've conducted some online programs recently, and the challenge of virtual programs have always been keeping the engagement during the online program. The question is, how do you make sure the voices of the audience are also heard? How do we make them react and encourage them to participate or provide real time feedback without distracting from the program proper? So, this one, how to keep sustain the audience engagement
Right.
during museum tour
Right.
virtual platform.
I think one of the things that the chat box is an important box where you can engage people even before you start your event. For the young people here, if you follow BTS, the Korean band, they have learned how to manage engagement online, wherein people are able to have conversations with them in the chat box. I really believe that you allow, and I think people are also more comfortable now asking questions online. Um, and then I think you have to your presentations have to be not too long. Um, because attention also. So you'll have to know how to use breaks to keep the attention going. That's just my suggestion.
Okay, so there's a question from an anonymous attendee. What advice will you give to a first time museum curator who will launch his or her first exhibition? So that could be online or that could be physical. So, any thoughts about this? What advice could you give for a first time museum curator who will launch his or her first exhibition?
I'm a believer in teams. Um, I think you have to be a good team player, and maybe as the curator, your job as a first-time curator is really to keep the team that you're working with uh, um, the focused and on what you want to impart through the the exhibition. But you will really need the help of many others, either to to install it, to manufacture it, to build it, or even just third party point of view feedback. Um, I think that teamwork and be a team player, but you're the champion, obviously, for what your exhibition is going to be about. You'd be surprised how much more an exhibition um, will get better because you're bringing in you're trying to inform your exhibition with points of view from that's not just your own. But as the curator, it has to be very clear to you what the concept of your exhibition is. If
Yeah.
you can articulate it to yourself, put it in a concept statement, I think it's really crucial.
Yeah, I totally agree. So the concept is important, the narrative, the research, and the story is very important. No? So all this has come together to set up a very good exhibition,
And
and
so
that
that
should be well considered.
Yeah, and I think Ikin, to add to that, so that when you work with a team and articulate it, it's clear, so that that
Mm.
becomes you're all singing, as the expression is, you'll all be singing from the same song sheet. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Totally agree. No, so it's like I said in my discussion on the topic on curation last week. I always cringe if they call you curator, because a curator has to have this discipline and a lot of knowledge and a lot of interaction from various sources. No, then you put that everything in one paper or two-page concept. What your exhibit should be,
Yeah.
uh, and how to implement that with the team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So there's another question here. If the situation is under strict quarantine and isolation, what is the most important for the museum to consider and why?
Wow. You know, I think Ikin also mentioned it in her presentation about how the health standards that you have to uphold, um, and you have to plan around it. We're not open yet, so we haven't reopened yet. So one of the things we're preparing for is when we open, like Ikin, kunyari, what you've done is it's invitational, 10 people at a
Mm.
time.
Yeah.
But your exhibition by itself should captivate whether 10 people or 100 people, right? So again, you're doing it with someone in mind to digest it. So
Mm.
I think the idea is more health protocols. What will you do to enhance the experience while the persons are in your space? Um, Sometimes it's not so great to be in an overly crowded space anyway. I mean, there are for
Yes.
you to be able to respond and connect to the objects on display or on exhibition. Sometimes you need quiet and your
Yes.
space for contemplation, right? So in fact, maybe
Internal. Yeah.
this COVID thing might be a blessing. I mean, this whole concept of blockbuster museums, which defined the previous times, um, sort of looked like a marketplace, right? So now the onus is on us to that, so that when you are engaging with our collections, busog ka, in other words, no. So you have to try and enhance that, I think. But as I said, whether it's 100 people or 10 people who are going to engage with your exhibition, we are accountable for making sure that that experience is a good one for you, so that you come back, because the idea is for you to want to come back and engage
Yeah.
more. Yeah.
Yeah. In addition to that, I think museums also need to rest at some point. So I think this COVID situation allowed us to rethink, no?
Mm.
Like I said, to recalibrate the
Sorry, what happened? Got cut. Yes, got cut.
that cut. Okay, so talking about museums resting, no? So I think museums also need to rest at some point. Uh, there's also a museum fatigue, what I call, for because like you said, blockbuster museum. So we have been frequented by a lot of people.
Yeah.
So we also experience a museum fatigue. So COVID is also allowing us to rethink our programs and recalibrate activities, let the artifacts rest. So we have to pull down and clean them, and then keep them and store them properly, and then remount them again for the next exhibition. So we still have a lot of questions, Mariles. So
I'll be glad to answer what I can. I may not have an answer for everything.
okay, so we have a question from Manolo Piñaflor. And the question is, have you encountered any problem like technical or data privacy during your digitization exhibit? If yes, how were you able to resolve it?
Fortunately, none yet. Knock on wood that it doesn't happen. None yet. But one of the advantages, I guess, of being a private museum, is, of course, we can access the technical support and the ICT of the whole of Ayala. No, so that helps me. And also, we engage them kind of early on, so that those safety standards are integrated in what we're doing. But we're nowhere sophisticated yet. I mean, right now, what we're doing is we're fixing our website, we're putting it together, and we're taking those things into consideration. But fortunately, wala pa. So, sana hindi mangyari.
Yeah. So far, the Museo Kordilyera have not encountered any issues on this case, no technical or even data privacy or whatever. So we have to consult. For instance, we are very careful with loaned items about the attribution,
Yes,
whether to reveal the identity of the person or to put it as anonymous. So we are very careful with that. With the collections of, in the same way that we are very careful with the collections of the museum, no?
yes.
Who to reveal the value. Of course, we don't reveal all of this information to the public.
Mhm.
All right, so we have another question here from Kelly Ramos. Kelly Ramos is an avid attender of this workshop from Cagayan. Question, I'm wondering where to check for the latest on IATF restrictions on the opening of museums.
Ay, naku.
Are we in the same category as movie theaters? It's very hard to strategize programming when the future is so uncertain. Yeah.
I think from what I understand, Kelly, is that we're not allowed to open yet. I mean, as museums are, I mean, interestingly, galleries are allowed. So it depends what you call yourself, no? But technically, if you look at the IATF rules, we're not allowed. And then I think somebody even wrote in the newspaper, why aren't they allowed to open when hindi naman nagdadagsaan ang, we're not performance theater, or we can manage our visitorship, no. But I think at the moment, wala. But have you heard anything, Iken? For me, I keep on looking and we're not there in the list to open.
Yeah, when we drafted the museum guideline for health and safety, we have to check the IATF.
Mhm.
So, and then we also have to check the local government announcements for that one. So there's a website. It's IATF website, and there are 12 pages guidelines on this. And museums are not allowed to open under ECQ conditions.
Mhm.
Under ECQ, you cannot open. But for GCQ, museums can be open, but there are some conditions like five. You have to observe strict health protocols, social distancing, and not limited to X number of people can enter the museum. In Baguio City, I think Benka Museum was the first one to open. Of course, we waited because we are uncertain about the conditions. So we opened maybe in we opened in October 1st, so a few months after Benka, following strict guidelines. So there's a network of museums in Baguio that they're cross-checking. Are you opening? When are you opening? Are you sure? So we have this. We are adamant of opening it to the public, but we had to comply with the health and regulations. You have to make sure that inside the museum there are directional signs. You have the signages. You have a temperature check. You have the triage system. So once you comply with that, you can actually open your museum
I guess,
under
but
under
I wonder if by the time I reopen, it will be that strict. Sana hindi na.
yes,
Huh? No, but I
yes,
think yeah, we have to assume that those guidelines have to be kept
yeah, followed.
for a while. Mm-mm.
And for the case of Museo Kordilyera, we also coordinated with the mayor, our mayor, who's a supporter of arts and crafts and culture. So he said, open your museum. So we have guests, and Baguio also opened that to the local tourists. So they came in, and we are accepting only lang by appointment. So very strict, no, only 10. Even if you're, sometimes the trick is if the tourists are in our campus and they wanted to come in, so naturally walk-ins are not allowed. But can I just make an appointment tomorrow or in the afternoon to come? So we also allow them as long as there's an appointment and you're less than 10, no children, no, right? So no children allowed to enter the museum, only adults and up. So we're careful with checking the guidelines once in every time before opening fully to the museum. So there's an anonymous attendee here. She said that on MGCQ, modified, what's the G? Modified
General community quarantine.
general community quarantine. So under that condition, the museums are open. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so we have another question here. Uh, I am just curious, Ma'am
Mm.
Marides, she
Mm.
said, does Ayala Museum offer funding to small starting or community museums dreaming to upgrade? Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
No, at the moment, we're not a grant giving foundation, but that doesn't mean that it won't change because as we begin, even the foundation itself with COVID-19 and our experience, we're now, in fact, this afternoon, we're in a planning session wherein we are going to review everything, because the community is a very important part of our remit. So good you asked. I'll bring it up. But right now, we're not a grant giving foundation.
Yes. To answer that question, there are, like I said in our previous discussion, the CHED also gives funding for instance, if you want to refurbish an infrastructure to build your museum, they give grants, and also it is also encouraged that you come up with a concept paper for your museum, no, what your needs are, like training. Like we got a grant from CHED to conduct this training, so they give all of this support also from the Commission on Higher Education, the NCCA also, and other or even tap an LGU to help you in your museum, because now there is a legislation of a one town one museum, and that's where they get for instance, if you have a good museum, then you can have a seal of excellence. So if you have a seal of excellence, then they can give you additional funding for your LGU for startup museums. I think, yeah, that's the case. Okay, another question. To both Ayala Museum and Museo Kordilyera, do you hire professionals to digitize your collections for your virtual exhibitions? Do you think digitization is doable by the usual museum staff, or should there be a special training and equipment for this?
Mhm. You go first. You go first.
Yeah, based on our discussion yesterday, so usually the basic part, like photography, digitization, and then uploading that online. That can be done by the staff. But once you go on advanced level, as we discussed yesterday with Evert, like the virtual museum that we ambition to have
Mm,
for Museo Kordilyera, of course, you need to hire digital natives to render this for you. So
yes,
that's very important because they do it professionally, and they know the language on what to use
yes.
and what to upload and what software to use. So at Museo Cordillera, yes, we do hire digital professionals to do the digitization for us.
Also at Ayala Museum, we're like Ikin. There are things that can be done in house by the staff,
Yeah.
videos, editing videos, photography. That's all done in house. But when it comes to heavy duty um, technology requirements, then we source out experts to work with us, and I find that that's probably the most efficient way because you can only pilot so much, and but you have to have the experts to work with you. So
Yeah.
yes, the digitization is very important. How they design it, and all you really need to do as the owner is to be very clear about what you want. And then let them solve it and come back to you with a with a recommendation on how best you want that to happen.
Yeah. So, in terms of the content of the digital plan, no, it is usually provided by the museum, but the rendition of that are done by the professionals. Okay. So there's a question here from Maria Mangahas. Hello, Maria. Uh, Question: do you make use of virtual digital 3D in the Ayala Museum and Museo Cordillera? You
Um,
wanna
yeah, I
first?
think once we because we tried out yung 3D, and I think we used it in one of our exhibitions just to see how it would enhance the experience. We tried it out for our exhibition Gold in Our Veins, and it really works. No, so as we plan going forward, where it is suitable, we will use it. Di ba? It might not be suitable for all kinds of exhibitions, but the idea was to experience how it's made and how it's done, because it's really a collaboration between the one who does the 3D and you as the museum with the objects. No. So that I thought was very interesting. I know you're doing a virtual. Your ambition is a virtual museum. Ikin. So how's that coming along?
Yeah, so at Museo Cordillera, we are currently working with a professional company who's rendering for us a 3D virtual museum. So at the moment, the museum staff are collating all of this information, the content, photographs, videos, 360 degrees, and dami-dami, which are the requirements to input that into the 3D virtual museum.
Mm-mm.
I think Maria has an additional follow-up question whether Ayala Museum or Museo Cordillera use 3D imaging of the artifacts. Do you do that at the Ayala Museum?
That's the ideal situation, no? Like for example, for our digital collections, we need to be able to shoot the objects like what you said, 360 degrees, so that when they, yeah, so in that sense, I don't know if we're using the most sophisticated version. Feeling ko hindi because medyo basic pa muna. But I think the ideal situation is we should, because that's part of the, for example, if you allow people to access specific objects in your collection, they should be able to see it, especially kung 3D siya and not just a work of a painting. Then I think it's important that you have that. So we're doing a very basic version of that for our ethnographic collections that you need to see, our ceramic collections. Yes, we're doing it.
Yeah, for the Museo Cordillera, we're starting to do it with our artifacts, but the 3D imaging are done with our textiles. We have that's another research project at the University of the Philippines, Baguio. So we have a software that can actually do 3D imaging of vintage textiles in our research. So we use that in our team to analyze the fabric, the hibla or the threads, and how they are arranged together. So these are done microscopically, and we have a software to look at the textiles 3D.
Nice.
This can also be done on artifacts. So we are exploring that one, and we need an IT person really to do it. And then, of course, you have to pay for subscription for the program. There's a subscription for that particular software. So we are doing it at the Museo Kordilyera. Okay, let's have this last question from Jimbo Fatala from Marinduque. So thank you, Ma'am Mariles. Would you recommend that museums that are now going digital, particularly private museums, should tap DepEd or CHED for
Mm-mm.
collaboration in teaching and pedagogy to aid one another? Now that education and learning are becoming more distant, while museums need to reach out wider audience in this time of pandemic.
Oh, I highly recommend it. I mean, this thing that Ekin's driving, this whole museum webinar, I mean, it's too much worth of work. But you know, we're all at home, so you know, you can actually avail of it. And I think moving forward, whether it's with university museums or museums in general, there really has to be a need to consult each other because we all have our little areas of expertise. That's one. So you need to be able to access that, and especially in what's good if you're only beginning to, if you're just about to start a museum, you're lucky because you do not have to unlearn too many things. You know, you have a fresh start and you kind of have a lay of the land as to what's required. So you know, and I think the idea is to keep in touch and Ikin, for me, I mean, we're a corporate museum or a private museum. My dream is always to be able to collaborate with university museums because of the research side of it, right? So I think it's that kind of a give and take that I think is important going forward.
Yeah. In addition to that, the reason why we collaborated with SHED because of the research aspect of our museums. And so we are trying to build this network of university museums because some of our research publications, the findings are not palatable or digestible. I mean, they are very either they are too technical or you cannot understand anything at all because they are written in such a way that are not very popular. So I think the museum is a platform to be an area for dialogue between your audience and your academe, no? And they come in one place and then present this research in such a way that can be easily understood by the public. I mean, that's the problem for journal publications, especially in the academe. No? Some of these are not even accessible. They're too technical. So we're bringing this research on the ground and then try to extrapolate on how we can present this better using the museum platform.
Yeah.
I think that's the goal for this entire webinar series. Know how to make, how to tell this story in a very interesting and engaging way. Okay, so I think we have more questions. I hope you're still okay there. From May Arlene Torres, there's a certain kind of thinking that virtual tour of the museum might lose interest of clients to come when the time comes that museums will be open to the public. What do you think about this?
Me, I like as I mentioned to you earlier, like for example, I don't think you should have a virtual exhibition at the same time as your existing exhibition on site. I think the virtual exhibitions for exhibitions that are on site are just meant to extend it. But there is a thing called exhibitions specifically designed for online. That's a very
Mm,
different exercise. And
I
therefore can only be accessed online. You'll never see it on site. No, I mean a lot of us are sort of traversing those two areas. But eventually, I think the world will be like that. There will be exhibitions that you can access only on site, and
Yeah.
that requires a different kind of training, a different kind of writing, a different kind of thinking, but it will be there. And so I don't think the my point is your on site is on site, and that's meant to be appreciated that way. And the only time you put it online is when it's finished and you want other people, and there are still people who haven't seen it. And you'd be surprised how many people still haven't seen so many things. You know, our gold collection, which has been around, many people still haven't seen it. And I already thought many people saw it because that was a major exhibition, and we haven't really taken it down. It's a permanent collection, and still many people have not seen it. So we have to try and expand our reach.
Yeah, thank you, Mariles. So I think we already covered most of the questions. There are still interesting comments here, like from Maria Gemma San Jose, who went to the Ayala Museum to watch the bead exhibition.
Yes.
So she brought her mother there, her 75-year-old mother, to see other activities. And thank you also to the rest of the participants who are congratulating us for this webinar. Thank you so much. My level 2 pa and all. So do you have some last words, Marilas, to our participants? We are live via Zoom, via YouTube, and our VLE participants. Your words or additional
First of all,
comments.
thank you, Ikin, for inviting me to tell our story. And I cannot emphasize how important the role of museums are, especially now, and how by some stroke of good luck or bad luck, we have managed to find a way to reach others more by what we do, not just on in our facility but online as well. And so I really encourage this kind of exchange. I'm not a university museum, but I would love to be able to, you can access me from and learn from what we know how to do. And I would love to be able to access all of your knowledge and really, my own dream is to fascinate audiences, to like to come to museums, to like it as much as we do. I mean, it's so pronounced where we stand. The museums is in the middle of a mall. So every time I sit there and I look out, I know my competition is for your 250 pesos is either the movie, shopping, food. And so, how will I do that, right? When I think what we have inside is equally fascinating. So I think we need to get the whole of the Philippines to like what it is
Engage.
that we're doing. So thank you so much for this opportunity. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Miss Marites. And maybe for our participants, for my case, if I go and visit a new place, I always go to one, the market, public market, and
Yeah.
second, the museum. So let's make it a habit. So when we visit new places, let's look for the museums and
Ah,
find out the culture and history of the place. Okay, thank you very much, Miss Mariles. For your contribution to today's webinar. And we'll keep in touch for future collaboration later
yes.
on.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so much.
everyone, for coming. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
I can go now, huh?
So, oh, thank you so much, Miss Mariles. So today is our last day for the webinar. And like I mentioned yesterday, we are going to give you a brief summary of the survey that we did and what other trainings necessary to help you with your museum. So I will just present a brief data report from our staff, and we collated this last night and tried to understand uh, all of this. Okay. So I'm getting the participants are getting emotional because it is the last day, no. So, but there's more. We have level 2, and we are already receiving queries how to participate in level 2. We will um, actually send you invitations about this, but we just need to analyze our data on how to go about it. Let me just share my brief data on it. Okay, so as you can see here, we already tabulated the participants as of 25 November. No? So we have an average of about 300 participants, from 250 to 300 participants per day from day 1 to day 12. And then our evaluation is very high. Thank you. So that's 4.9 at the average for all the webinars except for today. We will receiving that later. And also, we'd like to inform you that there are also other participants or attendees from the YouTube channel. And then we also have the VLE platform of UP Baguio. That's the virtual learning environment of the university for students and faculty. We have also a museology course, two sections no, enrolled in this class. So they are also attending this webinar. So this is an evaluation that was called from the survey. Thank you for giving us high rates no, in terms of the relevance of the topic, the speaker's mastery of the topic, organization and sequencing, the personality projection and clarity of presentation, and then of course the timeliness of advice and service provided by this webinar. So in this training, we also tabulated the survey on what other aspects of museum training is necessary and your request, no? So we can fulfill that and plan this for the level 2 online museum management training on February 2020. And it turns out that the number one demand is on collecting, documenting, and handling of artifacts, which gained 72.1%. The second one is on conservation of artifacts, which is 62%. And we have museum administration, and conceptualizing and curating an exhibition comes next. And of course, the timely concern on the digitization of museums with 54.2%. So I think we will consider this in planning for the level 2 training, which is more specialized, and it will be a trainer's training. So we will train key museum workers no in their museums, like the curators, directors, and we also would like to include university officials, no, the university presidents in this particular training. So here, so the question for that survey: what museum skills would you like us to further expand and concentrate on in level 2 of the museum management training? So we have Miss Florita Garcia, who is interested in assessing significance of museum artifacts, no? Since they do not have a collection development policy in place yet in their museums. And then from Lizelle Maala, she's a librarian from Urdaneta City University. So she's interested in digitization of museum and its management because this is the in thing now with the emergence of technology. Then from Alora Salvador Salcedo, skills on how to properly utilize the digital assets and the online applications available to better adapt to current situation brought about by the pandemic. So we had Miss Evert Miranda yesterday. So I think what is important with the current situation now is to capacitate the skills no of our museum personnel or museum workers on how to use this digital media as a platform. Then from Rachel Grace Liklikan on museum curation, plus research embedded in museum management, no? So curation and research, and then from Kelly Palaganas, he wants a more holistic view or a skills training on all aspects of the museum. Okay. So conservation of ethnographic artifacts from Katrina Yap from the Asian Center Museum. Then from Benguet University, Danielle Balbin said more on hands-on. If not possible, the video demonstrations of several speakers were very effective. So the goal of this on webinar series is really to give you a teaser or an overview of the museum management training. But if travel restrictions are lifted next year by February, we hope to bring in selected participants to come to Baguio to have this more face-to-face and hands-on training. So we are not still removing the idea of the plan to have all of the participants come to Baguio. But if restrictions are really very challenging, we have to do everything online. No? So the objective is really to have the hands-on training. Even museum visits are included, benchmarking of museums are included in this training. But like I said, if we still have these restrictions on travel, we have to do this everything online. From LGU Tadyan, from Client East Van Totanes, who's a cultural mapper, is interested in museum architecture and design, no? To match the interests and the needs of the community. Then from Myra Paz Lopez from the Holy Angel Center of Kapampangan Studies, who is interested on training on conservation, valuation, and assessment of museum artifacts. From Alicia Esguerra from Bulacan State University is interested in museum administration and how to start up with one. Of course, there's a comment there on lobbying for funding. No, I think the best thing to do is to train museum staff how to write proposals, no, for funding and other matters also like documenting and handling and conservation of artifacts. Okay, from Nathaniel Daroy from Pangasinan Provincial Tourism and Cultural Affairs Office. They are interested on a lot of things from administration, technical training, and others. No, even digitalization is also the need, no, for their museums. And also from Sandra Bunagan from St. Paul University, Philippines. Skills, no, on museum training. And then from Nicanor Hermono from the Center for Pangasinan Training on actual hands-on training on handling and conservation of museum artifacts. So I think if we go back to this table, it encapsulates all the things that you need for level 2. We will consider all of this and we will design a more advanced module for this webinar or face-to-face training. So we also received a lot of good comments for this training. They said that it has been very helpful for all of them and very interesting. They learned a lot in the question and answer, no? Where the speakers would respond to the needs, no, and other queries from our participants. Okay, so to summarize, to say thank you to our participants, we would like to extend our many thanks in participating consistently in this webinar. So we will issue please sign in on our feedback form to get the completion certificate of attendance for today's webinar. And then we will send you the certificate of completion, for attending all the 14 webinars for the past 2 months. And then we will identify those who had completed the webinars to advance them to level 2. And the training kits will be sent next month. So we already prepared that. So this will be sent via courier for the first 100, and the second batch will be coming soon. No? So we're just completing all of the things inside the kit, no? The training kit. Okay, so that's about it. No? So for all of the participants, we thank you, and we will send you an email about the updates on how to proceed to level 2, and we will also issue your certificate of completion. Then for our participants, thank you so much for all our 15 participants who share their knowledge, their expertise to this webinar. Okay, so it looks like we have a lot of Q&A. Okay. All right, so thank you so much, everyone, and we'll keep you posted for more for the level 2 training. And then tomorrow, we don't have the webinar. We will miss everyone. I also asked our technical staff if it's possible to show the faces of all these 300 participants, but he said it's difficult. So we want to see you face to face, maybe in level 2 for this training. Thank you so much, and congratulations to everyone. And thank you for all your support to this online webinar series. Maraming salamat po, and keep safe, everyone.